Okay, so why specifically are art students sometimes very keen on making music, and why are some of them even better than actual musicians with a music degree, gone to 6 different music schools, still, you know, 90 viewers on Spotify? Why is that the case? Why are so many art students so creative? So here is my thesis on this sort of stuff, because I've seen that a lot of these musicians that are successful, they went into arts, not actual music, but for some reason creative arts, or you know painting or similar things like that. So yeah, um, number one, most of them have some sort of autism, and that could be good. Like I mean, like tier one is it called now, maybe, but a lot of art students I met, like most of them have autism, and they like it's a sort of thing of its own. But like when you have that sort of you know thing going on, a lot of them are actually really good. Most of them don't say it, but like in retrospect, a lot of them will like somehow tell you that that they have some traits of it. Most people that are kind of weird but really make really good music. um, Number two, they have no barriers. So art students are kind of told to have no barriers when making art, kinda, and they are experimenting a lot, and they see that sort of the experimenting with music is kind of the same thing. There is no sort of shame or like problem experimenting with music. So you could, like with a painting or canvas, there kind of are no limitations nowadays. Sort of, there used to be, but now it kind of is just about the person themselves. But like usually it's about experimenting and trying to make something abstract and from nothing, basically. Art students are really good at that. They aren't sort of basically chiseled down to make sort of just music for music's sakes, but they make music for something that they want to try out something new. Number three, they see music. They're a lot more open-minded when it comes to stuff. A lot of music people I'm seeing is there a little bit of a closed, sort of narrow, sort of style of playing. It's kind of expectable, and it's kind of correct. It's kind of, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Sometimes there'll be something new, but like sometimes in the technical correct music, you'll actually get really good music, and sometimes you'll just get you know you know nothing new, and that's the sort of problem, you see. And they're a lot more open-minded to basically make a lot of sounds. Basically, they're open for the infinite possibilities of music. So the infinite possibilities that can be made with chords, even though there's maybe a set limitations of chords, or there's an infinite amount on how you see it. And art students kind of see it as infinite, even though it sounds kind of inaudible sometimes, it's actually pretty, it could be a spark. It depends on kind of the artists themselves. Number four, they have a more of an artistic imagery or a vision for a song. So when people paint and make an architect or a drawing of a building complex or something like that, they sort of have a vision in their head on how grandiose it will be. Maybe it's, and some people can articulate it, what comes to their head a little bit more often, so they'll come like in a walls open to the sky, and then you have a building budget of what, like $100,000 or like a couple million. You can't do that, so you have to sort of scale it down. But you can get it sort of with music. It's kind of infinite of how you can actually make it in the air, sort of in the mind, in a way. So they have sort of a vision of, imagine a house. Think of a house right now, and everyone has a different thought of it. So it's sort of a little bit of everything. So they have like I said vision for a song, and same with art. A vision for a painting. I had plenty of, but when I went into arts, I had like spontaneous thoughts. I had to get down into drawing this. I would spend 3 hours, 5 hours drawing a single piece of paper, which looked mediocre, but it literally it completed my circle and my thoughts, and I found that really cool. And same with music, you sort of had that sort of do chords going differently. So do 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 or something like that. Sometimes it's a complete song, and sometimes it's just a bunch of notes, but you want to get it finished or something like it's literally a song. So like I have like a really cool intro for a song, and I continue along with it. Okay, this could be a good chorus, this could be a good verse. Will I complete it one day? No, but it'll be it sounds really cool, and that's sort of it. I know musicians have it themselves, but sometimes it can be like just playing a beat and then sort of like structuring it from the ground up. Like that's kind of weird. But number 5, they are not structured, so they have like no structure when it comes to making music, because sometimes people just see things in a 4x4 beat or 6x8 or 13 by 174, and sometimes they'll see it in a tempo in a way, and they'll see things in a more of a grandiose type of way, beyond the sort of immeasurable time scales and all the the things that make things linear and kind of boring. That's sort of how it goes. But then you get a producer, and then you get a the sound guy or the guy mixing the song. He'll like, what the fuck, what is this, and he'll like make it sort of audible or enjoyable, I guess, maybe. Or sometimes they'll butcher the whole song. They'll butcher the whole like imagine in your head. Sometimes you have to crank up that amp for that specific sound, even though the mixer or the producer hates it and has to make it soft and pop. That's the sort of like, you can't make it raw, gritty, and unfiltered. You just have to make it what music is today, even though that's that's kind of it doesn't make you money anyways. But number 6, comfort. Comfort in being weird, and don't caring about failure. So there's a comfort in being weird, and sort of like imagine Oliver Tree. Like good, I think he had an arts degree too. He's a current musician. He passed away sadly, but that's a great seed. Like he has, you wouldn't see a music student sort of do that in a way, even though like he has an eye for things like branding matters. Dressing up in his bright weird clothing and this sort of style, it actually matches the song, and he had a vision for that sort of, and that's and he was comforting in like The Ugly is the Beautiful was this album called, and the beauty in the ugly and the beauty in the weird, being sort of quirky, being goofy, I don't know, and not caring about like necessarily about failures, because like they just want it finished. They don't care about like, this is what is getting streamlined into my series of tubes in my cognitive my head basically, and I just want to get it finished. I want to play it, I want to play the notes, I want to record it properly, so it could be a demo for a potential song when I save enough money and put a wheelbarrow of cash into it, and get less than 5 views on Spotify. But it's not caring about the failure, but getting it finished and getting it as it was in your head, and as you know, as you can possibly physically get it capable of working, you know. So number 7, many art institutions, art colleges, art universities, art high school, you know, they have a sort of a breeding ground for successful musicians of, you know, being exceptionally talented. And you know, I think Pink Floyd was one of those. I think the Beatles and the Clash, I think, also is like a classic tale of, you know, some architects or musicians jumping into music for the hell of it, and then, like, because it was the 60s and 70s, it was magical, you know. And it sort of, you know, it is absolutely stunning, because they could, I don't think a music student in the late 1970s would ever make that sort of possible. I think, or some of them would, but like it wouldn't be. Maybe a bassist or a drummer would have a music degree, like in I think, was it, I don't exactly remember what band it was. Was it Black Sabbath, or was it I don't exactly remember, but it was something like there was like 2 members that had actual professional music degrees, and the rest were like art students. And then, like, you know, they had a vision for a song, and they sort of collaborated. The bassist or the guitarist that had a music degree made it correct, made it functional, you know. That's sort of how it goes. Number 8, cognitive and fantasy building. So a lot of art students have fantasy, and they're creative. That's it, you know. Like in manga or comics, or in, you know, simple like illustrations. Number 9, rich parents or influential parents. Blue names on Wikipedia. So, like, you know, you see the classic indie punk bands nowadays will have like a bunch of these parents that are just loaded with cash. You know, it is kind of a weird thing, but it's kind of like a meme at this point. And number 10 is there is a connection in art. So there's a connection in both, like at art and music classes. So, like, art is more open-minded, I see. Music is more, you know, professional production style. You know, getting it producing music for the sake of music. You know, or what is currently popular today in the trends. Even though maybe most won't see that, you know. And they're not like, art students are not that competitive. That's my theory on it. But like, I think that art students are not super competitive when it comes to music, and they're sort of just want to, you know, get their fantasy made into real life, while musicians are sort of competitive on how technically advanced they are. That's pretty much it. Bye.